Hello everyone, my name is Harith. Today we're going to be looking at the Universities and University College Act UUCA 1971, or is mainly known as AUCU. AUCU is the main legislation that governs the public university in Malaysia. AUCU was enacted in 1971 and subsequently amended 6 times throughout its history. And in this video, we will be having a look at all the amendments and the profound implications it had for the development of higher education and of the universities in Malaysia, particularly in its governance of this public institution, their degree of autonomy, and the state-university relationship in general. Now let's move on to the history of AUCU. An interesting fact that is often overlooked when discussing about AUCU is that its enactment was 2 years after a controversial and black part of Malaysian history, which was the 30th May incident in 1969, where there were political turmoil and tension between races. Thus, this event has affected the enactment of AUCU 2 years later, which is in 1971, where state believed that absolute freedom should not be given to university or any institution for that matter, and it should be limited. This point is clearly illustrated by then Minister of Education when tabling the act, which basically highlights that the government agrees with the concept of academic freedom, but like others' freedom, it should not be absolute. And university would also require vast amount of public funds, and in that process it will have to constantly bear in mind the national aspiration and needs as interpreted by the government. Thus, AUCU marked the beginning of a long history of state intervention in universities. Moving on, in 1975 amendment, it gave the state full control over university by granting the following, notably section 15 and 16, where it extended and allowed the expulsion and suspension of individual students, and also gave power to appoint vice chancellor is taken away from the university council and given to the YDP on advice of minister, and so much more. Going to the amendment in 1983, it was only a minor amendment where basically it was made just to allow IIUM to be established under Companies Act instead of AUCU. And then another major amendment was made, which is in 1996, where there is notably a significant restructuring again of Malaysian university. For example, the University Senate was downsized from including all professors and dean from 200 to 300 members, depending on what university you're in, to only including institutional leaders and not more than 20 professors. And even then, those professors are only appointed by the vice chancellor and no one else. And last but not least, in 2009 and 2012, where we can see there is a bit of a move on loosening the grip of state on university, where there were changes such as the state establishing search committee to advise minister to employ leadership roles in university so that they don't lose those academic intelligence in those leadership roles. And secondly, criminal penalties is also abolished under AUCU, and students' discipline were also decriminalized, and etc. So yeah, that's it for the history of AUCU. Now I'll pass back to the next representative. Thank you.
Now moving on to the objective of the statute. So first of all, it is as a development of higher education, particularly on the governance and autonomy of public universities. And secondly, it is to provide a legal instrument for the establishment of universities in Malaysia. And lastly, it is to officiate the relationship between the state and universities. Now moving on to the first local issue that we have chosen, which is that UUCA amendment passed due to a case called Muhammad Hilman bin Idham and Kerajaan Malaysia 2011 that allows students political involvement on campus. In this case, Muhammad Hilman bin Idham and 4 other students from Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia UKM were involved in the constituency of Ulu Selangor for the election campaign on 24th April 2010. Then after that, they received a notice for disciplinary proceedings by the Vice Chancellor of UKM, and the disciplinary proceedings against them have been instituted for constituting constituting offences under Section 15, Clause 5A of the Universities and University Colleges Act 1971. So the plaintiff here also insisted that the section violates their right of freedom of speech and expression. At the same time, he also appealed to this case in the Court of Appeal. However, it was held that the defendant were awarded to be taxed. Now, the second local issue is that 5 students lost their challenging university suspensions over MO1 rally participation. So, in August 28, 2017, 4 students from UM University Malaya and 1 student from UKM University Kebangsaan Malaysia were suspended by the UM's disciplinary board for 1 semester since they participated in the Tangkap M1 assembly and they were found guilty for it. However, they tried to file an appeal which leads them to lose their suit that they challenged for their own suspension over their own involvement of the assembly. And in this case, Judge Asnanta Balan has said that Section 15, Clause 3 of the Universities and University Colleges Act 1971 prohibits university students from showing sympathy or support to any society, organization, body, or a group which the university board determines to be unsuitable for the interests and well-being of the students or the university.
My name is Ayra Najma binti Rozaini, and today I will be explaining the function of the statute in resolving issues. So firstly, the University and University Colleges Act 1971, or UUCA, protects students from being punished and taken away their rights in receiving education if they wish to participate in political activities. Section 15, subsection 2C of the UUCA states that a student of a university is not allowed to be involved in political party activities within campus. However, Dr. Mazdi Malik had acted upon removing this archaic law, and the UUCA is constantly being reviewed and amended to fit in the time and situation of today. So, the UUCA functions to protect students from being punished just for participating in other than college-related activities. And the next function of the statute in resolving issues is that the UUCA provides university and college students the freedom to participate in other than college-related activities. After the amendment of subsection C of section 15(2) of the UUCA, students who are tied to any public universities or colleges are able to freely express their opinions on non-college related views outside or inside of their campus without the fear of being detained, arrested, or punished by the school. The UUCA functions to protect students from being punished just by voicing out their opinions.
Next, I will explain on how the Universities and University Colleges Act 1971 facilitates the changes in Malaysian society. First, UUCA sparked awareness among college students on the importance of their democratic rights. According to our law, everyone who is above 21 years old is allowed to vote in the election and can join political parties. Besides, our federal constitution guaranteed the freedom of speech and freedom of association. This was highlighted in the landmark case of Muhammad Ilman bin Idham and Kerajaan Malaysia in the year of 2011. The new amendment of this act gives more rights to students to join the political parties within the ground of university, which before the act limited the students' engagement in politics. This will entertain the Malaysian youth to join the politics and have knowledge of current political issues. It will lead or produce good leaders and good citizens that keep up with current issues in national politics, use their democratic rights to choose the government and administer the country wisely. Second, UUCA ensures the good governance of the university in the matter of maintenance, administration, and student affairs. The statute delegates the power to Vice Chancellor and Senate to govern the university without the government interference. It will give the university to focus more on the development and welfare of its students and academic staff rather than on the government interest. Besides, the amendment of the Act also paved the way for corporatizing the university to improve the quality of education and the graduate market.
So next, to conclude the Universities and University Colleges Act 1971, our group would like to give some suggestions and recommendations. Firstly, we would like to abolish the UUCA to give more independence to students, because by abolishing the UUCA, students are able to voice out their political opinions in universities more openly, and students are able to have a wider exposure to the subject of politics.
For the next suggestion, we would suggest to the government to give the autonomous power and independence from the government to universities in the statute. Professors and academicians should be democratically elected into the university senate instead of being appointed by only the vice-chancellor. They would definitely give a good idea and suggestion to the board of governors about the problem of students and academic staffs. This is to ensure the university governance objective to maintain students and academic staff's welfare and to achieve the university aim of quality education. And with that, we end our presentation here. Thank you for lending us your ears.